They shook hands. I felt like I was watching a deal with the devil. When we left the restaurant, I was shaking. That man is dangerous, I said. Yes, Alexander agreed. Which is why I'm glad he's no longer Marcus's problem. He's ours now, and we know how to handle business. 2 days later, Alexander's lawyer delivered a check to Dmitri. In exchange, we received all the documentation of Marcus's debt. We owned him now. Everything he owed, every payment he'd missed, every penny of interest, it all belonged to Chin Technologies, which meant it belonged to me. The next step was to approach Vanessa. Why her? Alexander asked when I told him my plan. Because Marcus betrayed her too, I said. And because she knows things we can use. I had Jennifer find out where Vanessa worked. She was at a small PR firm downtown, barely making ends meet. Marcus had bled her dry too, it seemed. I waited for her outside her office building one evening. When she came out, her face was tired, her clothes less expensive than they used to be. Vanessa, I called out. She turned, and when she saw me, her face went white. Emma, she whispered. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We need to talk, I said. Somewhere private. We went to a coffee shop, ironically not the Morning Brew. We sat in a corner booth, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. He's cheating on you, I said finally. Did you know? Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. Yes, with some girl named Ashley, and probably others. Why do you stay? Because I'm an idiot, she said bitterly. Because he promised me everything, and I believed him. Just like you did. I reached into my bag and pulled out Jennifer's folder. I slid it across the table. Marcus is in trouble. Big trouble. His company is failing. He owes money to dangerous people, and he's forged my signature on loan documents. Vanessa opened the folder, her hands shaking. She looked through the documents, and with each page, her face got paler. Because he's not a legitimate lender. He's a loan shark, basically. Goes by the name Dmitri. He's the one Marcus owes $500,000 to. Will he sell? Alexander asked. James shrugged. For the right price, probably. But it won't be cheap. He'll want full payment plus his expected interest. Maybe $600,000. Do it, Alexander said. Buy all of it. The legitimate debts and Dimitri's loan. That's over $1 million, Alexander. James said carefully. For a failing marketing firm. It's not about the marketing firm, Alexander said, glancing at me. It's about the acquisition experience for our team. Consider it a training exercise. James didn't look convinced, but he nodded. I'll start making calls. Over the next 3 weeks, James worked his magic. He contacted each creditor separately, offering cash payments for Marcus's debts. The legitimate firms sold easily, happy to get something rather than nothing. Dmitri was harder. Jennifer, my private investigator, arranged a meeting. Alexander and I met him in a restaurant downtown, in a private room in the back. Dmitri was exactly what I expected. Big, broad-shouldered, with cold eyes and expensive clothes. He looked at me like I was a piece of meat. So, he said in a thick accent, you want to buy Wellington's debt? Yes, Alexander said calmly. Why? He's finished. His company is worthless. That's our concern, Alexander said. Not yours. Dmitri laughed. I like you. You have balls. He turned to me. And you, pretty lady? Why do you care about Marcus Wellington? That's also not your concern, I said, keeping my voice steady. His smile widened. Oh, I like her too. She is fire. He leaned back in his chair. Okay, I sell you the debt, but I want $650,000. Cash. 600, Alexander countered. 650. 625. Dmitri considered this. Then he nodded. Deal. But I want it in 3 days. You'll have it in 2, Alexander said. Alexander nodded. Take all the time you need. But Emma, whatever you decide, I'm on your side. I looked up at him. Really looked at him. This man who had given me a job when I had nothing. Who had pushed me to be better. Who was offering me the one thing I never thought I'd have again. Power. Why are you helping me? I asked. He smiled, and there was something sad in it. Because I know what it's like to be betrayed by someone you trusted. And because somewhere along the way, you became more than just an employee to me, Emma. You became someone I care about. My breath caught. Alexander. You don't have to say anything, he said quickly. I'm not expecting anything. I just wanted you to know that whatever you decide to do about Marcus, you're not alone anymore. I stood up, walked to where he sat, and did something I never expected to do. I kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative. But then his hands came up to my face, gentle, and the kiss deepened. When we pulled apart, we were both breathing hard. That was, he started. A mistake, I asked, suddenly afraid. Perfect, he said. That was perfect. We stood there in his penthouse, the city sparkling below us, and I realized something. I'd been so focused on what Marcus had taken from me that I hadn't noticed what I'd found. A new life, a new purpose, a new person to trust, and maybe, just maybe, a new person to love. I want to do it, I said suddenly. I want to buy Marcus's debt. Alexander smiled. Then let's destroy him. The plan. The next morning, Alexander and I met with his financial team. We sat in a conference room on the 20th floor, looking at spreadsheets and numbers that would determine Marcus's fate. Wellington Marketing owes approximately $750,000 to various creditors, said James, Alexander's CFO. The primary debt holders are two investment firms and a private lender. The private lender is the problem. Why? I asked. I told you that revenge and freedom could be the same thing. What do you mean? He turned back to me, and there was something sharp in his expression, something calculating. Marcus owes money to dangerous people. His company is failing. He's desperate for investors. Alexander sat back down across from me. What if someone offered to save his company, to pay off his debts, to invest in his firm, to give him exactly what he needs? Why would anyone do that? Because that someone would then own him, control him, have the power to destroy him completely whenever they chose. I stared at Alexander. You're talking about buying his debt. I'm talking about buying his entire life. Alexander leaned forward. Shin Technologies has the capital. We could acquire his company's debt from his creditors for pennies on the dollar. Then we'd own him. And then, Emma, you could decide what happens next. My heart was racing. That's a lot of money. It's an investment. Marcus has some valuable clients, some good contracts. The company itself has worth. It's just being mismanaged. We buy the debt, restructure the company, and it becomes profitable again. It's actually good business. And you would be the one managing the acquisition, making the decisions. You'd have all the power. I thought about Marcus, about the way he'd looked at me that day in our kitchen, like I was nothing, like I was just a means to an end. The people he owes money to, I said slowly. The dangerous ones. Would they sell? Everyone has a price, Alexander said. And these people care about money, not revenge. If we offer them enough, they'll take it. I looked down at my hands. These hands that had made thousands of cups of coffee. These hands that had worked 12-hour days to rebuild my life. These hands that Marcus had once held, promising forever. I want to think about it, I said. I picked up the folder with shaking hands. Can I keep this? It's yours. What are you going to do with it? I looked at all those documents, all that evidence of Marcus's lies and crimes and failures. I don't know yet, I said, but I'll figure it out. The decision. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my apartment with Jennifer's folder spread out on my kitchen table, looking at the evidence of Marcus's destruction. He'd used me, betrayed me, taken everything I had, and now he'd forged my signature, putting me at risk for his debts. I could go to the police, show them the forged documents, press charges, but something stopped me. Going to the police meant lawyers, court dates, months or years of legal battles. It meant putting my life on hold again, letting Marcus control my time and energy even now. I'd spent the last year and a half rebuilding myself. I'd worked too hard, come too far, to let Marcus pull me back into his chaos. But I also couldn't let this go. Couldn't let him destroy me twice. There had to be another way. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Alexander's number. It was past midnight, but I called anyway. He answered on the second ring. Emma? What's wrong? I need advice, I said. About something complicated. Come to my place. We'll talk. Alexander lived in a penthouse downtown, all modern furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows. When I arrived, he had coffee waiting and concern in his eyes. I told him everything. About the investigation, about Marcus's debts, about the forged signatures. When I finished, Alexander was quiet for a long time. Do you want revenge? He asked finally. I don't know what I want, I admitted. Part of me wants to see him suffer the way he made me suffer. But part of me just wants to be free of him completely. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive, Alexander said thoughtfully. He stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the city lights. Emma, what if? 2 weeks later, Jennifer called me to her office. She had a thick folder on her desk. Your ex-husband is in trouble, she said, sliding the folder across to me. Big trouble. I opened it. Inside were documents, photos, financial records. Marcus's company was more than struggling. It was drowning. He'd taken out massive loans based on false revenue projections. He'd promised clients results he couldn't deliver. He'd been cooking the books for over a year. There's more, Jennifer said. She pulled out another set of documents. He's been borrowing money from some very unpleasant people. The kind who don't accept late payments. My stomach tightened. How much does he owe? $500,000. Plus interest. I flipped through more pages. Bank statements showing the offshore accounts, now empty. Credit cards maxed out. A mortgage on a house I didn't recognize, 3 months behind on payments. Then I saw the photos. Marcus and Vanessa. But these weren't romantic photos. These were arguments. Vanessa crying on a street corner. Marcus grabbing her arm, his face angry. Another woman in some of the pictures, younger, blonde. He's cheating on her too, Jennifer said. Has been for about 6 months. The girl's name is Ashley. She's 23. I closed the folder, feeling sick. There's one more thing you should know, Jennifer said quietly. The loans Marcus took out? Some of them were in your name. From when you were married. The room started to spin. What? He forged your signature on loan documents before the divorce was finalized. If he defaults, the creditors could come after you. You might be liable for some of his debts. I stood up so fast my chair fell backward. That's fraud, I said. That's illegal. Yes, it is. But proving you didn't sign those documents, proving Marcus forged your signature, that's going to be difficult. Jennifer leaned forward. Emma, your ex-husband is desperate. And desperate people do dangerous things. Analyzing property values. Alexander was a tough boss, but a fair one. He pushed me, challenged me, never let me settle for good enough. You're capable of excellence, Emma, he said once when I submitted a report. Don't waste that capability on mediocrity. I redid the report, made it better, then better again. And slowly, I stopped being the girl who lost everything. I became the woman who was building something new. I moved out of my studio apartment into a real one-bedroom with a kitchen and a bathroom that didn't have mold. I bought a used car, nothing fancy, but it was mine. I started saving money again. But more than the material things, I changed inside. I woke up every morning with purpose. I looked in the mirror and saw someone strong looking back. Someone who had been broken and put herself back together with her own hands. Alexander noticed. One evening, 6 months into my job, we were working late on a property acquisition deal. Everyone else had gone home. You've exceeded every expectation, he said, looking up from his laptop. I'm making you senior acquisition manager. It comes with a raise, an office, and a team. I stared at him. Alexander, I've only been here 6 months. And you've accomplished more than people who've been here 3 years. He closed his laptop. Emma, can I ask you something personal? Yes. What happened to you before the coffee shop? What made someone with your talent end up working minimum wage at 5 in the morning? I'd been waiting for this question. I'd rehearsed my answer, kept it vague, protected myself. But Alexander had given me a chance when no one else would. He'd seen something in me when I couldn't see it myself. So I told him everything. About Marcus. About Vanessa. About the divorce, the money, the friends who disappeared. About sitting on the floor of that studio apartment eating instant noodles, wondering if I'd ever feel whole again. The new beginning. Shin Technologies was located in a glass building downtown, the kind of place I used to visit when I worked for my father. But now I was walking in as someone different. Not the boss's daughter. Not Marcus Wellington's wife. Just Emma Parker, trying to rebuild her life. Alexander's assistant, a woman named Maya with bright red lipstick and a warm smile, led me to his office on the 20th floor. The view overlooked the entire city. Emma, Alexander said, standing up from his desk. I'm glad you called. We talked for 2 hours. He asked about my experience in real estate, about what I'd learned, about my ideas. He didn't ask about my divorce. He didn't ask why I was working at a coffee shop. He only asked about what I could do, who I could become. I'm going to be honest with you, he said finally. My company is growing fast. We're acquiring properties for tech campuses, and we need someone who understands both real estate and people. Someone who can negotiate, who can see potential where others see problems. Why me? I asked. You could hire someone with more experience, better credentials. Because when I asked how you ended up at that coffee shop, you said life happened. And when I watched you work, I saw someone who didn't give up. Someone who took a bad situation and found a way forward. He leaned back in his chair. That's the kind of person I want on my team. He offered me a salary that was 3 times what I made at the Morning Brew. Health insurance, stock options, a chance to prove myself. I said yes before he finished explaining the benefits package. I started the next Monday. The transformation. The first 6 months at Chin Technologies changed everything. I worked harder than I'd ever worked in my life. 12-hour days. Weekends at the office. Learning about tech industry needs, studying market trends. A man walked in wearing an expensive suit, talking on his phone. He was young, maybe 35, with dark hair and glasses. Asian features, confident posture. He ordered a double espresso without looking at me, still focused on his call. I made his drink perfectly. When I handed it to him, he finally looked up. "Thank you," he said, and something in his voice made me pause. It wasn't just politeness. It was genuine. He took a sip, his eyes widened slightly. "This is excellent. Really excellent." "Thanks," I said, surprised. Most customers just grabbed their drinks and left. He looked at me more carefully. "How long have you been working here?" 3 months. "And before that?" The question caught me off guard. I worked in real estate." He nodded slowly, still studying me. "What happened?" I should have said it was none of his business. I should have turned away and helped the next customer. But something about his direct gaze, his honest curiosity, made me answer. "Life happened," I said quietly. He smiled then, and it transformed his face. "Life has a way of doing that. I'm Alexander Chun, by the way. Emma Parker. Nice to meet you. Emma Parker, who makes excellent coffee and used to work in real estate." He pulled out a business card and set it on the counter. "My company is looking for someone with real estate experience to help with our property acquisitions. If you're interested, call me." I looked at the card. Alexander Chun, CEO, Chin Technologies. "I don't have a resume," I said. "I don't have references. I don't even have a car right now." "Do you have determination?" he asked. "Yes." "Do you have intelligence?" "Yes." "Can you work hard?" "Harder than anyone you've ever met." He smiled again. "Then call me. The rest we can figure out." He left with his espresso, and I stood there holding his business card, wondering if this was real or just another cruel joke from the universe. That night, I called the number on the card. The alarm went off at 4:30 in the morning. It was still dark outside, the kind of darkness that makes you question every decision you've ever made. My studio apartment was cold. I could see my breath in the air as I got dressed in my new uniform. Black pants, white shirt, green apron with the Morning Brew logo. My first day at the coffee shop. I walked 6 blocks through empty streets to catch the early bus. The city looked different at this hour. Quieter, cleaner somehow, like it was holding its breath before the chaos of the day began. The Morning Brew was a small corner shop with big windows and mismatched chairs. The owner, Mrs. Chun, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and strong hands, was already there when I arrived. "You're early," she said, surprised. "That's good. Let me show you how we do things." I learned everything that first week. How to make a perfect espresso. How to foam milk without burning it. How to smile at customers even when my feet ached and my back hurt. How to remember regular orders. To ask about people's days. To make them feel seen. It was hard work. Harder than anything I'd done at my father's real estate company. But it was honest work. And there was something satisfying about handing someone a perfect cup of coffee and seeing their face light up. The customers started to remember me. Mr. Roberts, who came in every morning at 6 for a black coffee. Sarah, the nurse who worked night shifts and needed a double-shot latte. Tom, the college student who studied in the corner for hours over a single cappuccino. They didn't know who I used to be. They didn't know about Marcus or the divorce or the wedding that cost more than most people made in a year. To them, I was just Emma, the girl who made good coffee and always remembered to ask how their day was going. And slowly, carefully, I started to become just Emma again. The unexpected meeting. It happened on a Tuesday morning 3 months into my job at the Morning Brew. My friends stopped calling. The ones who came to my wedding, who danced at my reception, who promised to always be there. They disappeared like smoke. I saw them once at a restaurant, laughing over wine. When they saw me, they looked away. I was toxic now, associated with scandal, with divorce, with failure. One night, I sat on the floor of my studio apartment eating instant noodles from the pot because I didn't have any clean dishes. The TV was broken. The internet had been shut off. I had $47 in my bank account. I looked at my reflection in the dark window and barely recognized myself. My hair was pulled back in a messy bun. I'd lost weight, my face gaunt and pale. My eyes had dark circles under them. I looked like a ghost. That night, sitting in that dark apartment with my cheap noodles and my empty bank account, I made a decision. I could let this destroy me. I could give up, give in, let Marcus win completely. Or I could fight back. Not with lawyers or courts or legal battles I couldn't afford, but with something more powerful. I could become someone Marcus never expected. I could rebuild myself from the ashes of this marriage. I could rise. And when I did, I would make sure Marcus knew exactly what he'd lost. Not for revenge. Or at least, not just for revenge. But because I deserved more than this. I deserved more than being someone's business transaction. I deserved more than this broken apartment and instant noodles and friends who disappeared when things got hard. I deserved everything. And I was going to take it. The next morning, I woke up with the sun. I cleaned my apartment until every surface gleamed. I went to the public library and applied for 50 jobs online. I walked downtown and filled out applications at every store and cafe. 3 days later, a small coffee shop called the Morning Brew called me back. The pay was minimum wage. The hours were early, 5 a.m. starts. I would smell like coffee and milk all day. I took it. Your husband has been transferring money from your joint account to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. It started 3 months ago. He's moved approximately $200,000. The room started to spin. That's theft, my father said. That's illegal. It's complicated, Mr. Peterson said. It was a joint account. Technically, he had a right to move the money. Proving that he did it with malicious intent will be difficult. Can we get it back? I asked. My voice sounded far away. We can try, but it will take time. And money. Legal fees, court costs, investigation expenses. It could take years, Emma. Years. I thought about fighting. About hiring the best lawyers. About dragging Marcus through every court in the state. But then I looked at my father's worried face, at Mr. Peterson's sympathetic eyes, and I realized something. Marcus had already won. He'd planned this from the beginning. The wedding, the marriage, the offshore accounts. He'd used me, and now he was walking away with everything. I signed the papers that day. I gave him what he wanted. Not because I forgave him, not because I was weak, but because I knew that sometimes you have to lose everything before you can become who you're meant to be. Rock bottom. 2 months after the divorce was finalized, I lost my job. My father's real estate company was bought out by a larger firm. The new owners wanted their own people. I was let go with a small severance package and a polite letter thanking me for my service. I suspected Marcus had something to do with it. He had connections in the industry. He knew people, but I couldn't prove it. I moved from our beautiful apartment to a studio on the wrong side of town. It had thin walls and a broken heater. The bathroom had mold in the corners. The kitchen was barely big enough to turn around in. I sold my car to pay rent. I took the bus everywhere. Emma, love is a fairy tale. What we had was a mutually beneficial arrangement. You got the wedding of your dreams, the perfect husband, the social status. I got access to your father's connections and his business network. It worked for both of us. I loved you, I whispered. I know, he said. There was no warmth in his voice. That's what made it so easy. Something happened to me in that moment. The part of me that wanted to cry, to beg, to ask him why, just disappeared. It was replaced by something cold and hard. Get out, I said. Emma, get out of this apartment. Now. He stood up slowly. We need to talk about this rationally. We need to figure out the divorce terms. Divorce terms? I laughed, and it sounded wrong even to my own ears. You want to talk about divorce terms? Emma, be reasonable. We both knew this marriage had an expiration date. Let's handle this like adults. I stared at him. This man who I'd given everything to. This man who I'd trusted with my whole heart. This man who had used me like I was nothing more than a business transaction. Get a lawyer, I said quietly. I'll get mine. The divorce papers. 3 days later, Marcus's lawyer sent the divorce papers. I sat in my father's office reading them, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the pages. Marcus was asking for half of everything. Half the apartment. Half my savings. half my trust fund from my grandmother. He even wanted half of my car, a gift from my parents when I graduated college. He can't do this, my father said, his face red with anger. He can't just take everything. But my lawyer, Mr. Peterson, a tired man with gray hair and sad eyes, shook his head. Actually, in this state, he can. You were married for 6 months. Any assets acquired during the marriage are considered joint property. And Emma, there's something else. He pulled out another document. And then I found the real evidence. His laptop was open on the kitchen table one Saturday morning. He'd gone for a run. I told myself I was just checking the weather. But my fingers moved to his email instead. The messages were all there. Hundreds of them. Love notes. Plans to meet. Photos I couldn't bear to look at for more than a second. Her name was Vanessa Chun. My stomach dropped when I saw it. Vanessa Chun. The girl from college. My roommate from freshman and sophomore year. The friend who came to our wedding, who hugged me and said she was so happy for us. The messages went back months. No, not months. Years. They'd been together before Marcus even proposed to me. I read one message that made bile rise in my throat. Soon, baby. Just a little longer. Once I'm married to Emma, her father's company connections will be mine. Then we can be together for real. This is just business. Just business. Our marriage. Our vows. My love. Just business. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. The confrontation. When Marcus came back from his run, I was sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open in front of me. My face was wet with tears, but my voice was steady. How long? I asked. He froze in the doorway, sweat still dripping down his face. He looked at the laptop, then at me. For a moment, he didn't say anything. Emma, how long have you been sleeping with Vanessa? He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the man I'd married was gone. In his place was a stranger with cold, calculating eyes. 2 years, he said. 2 years. We'd only been married for 6 months. You married me for my father's business connections, I said. It wasn't a question. Yes. Just yes. No apology. No explanation. Just yes. Did you ever love me? My voice broke on the last word. Marcus walked to the table, pulled out a chair, and sat down. He looked at me like I was a child who didn't understand how the world worked. I started to feel like a stranger in my own marriage. One night, I made his favorite meal. Roasted chicken with garlic and herbs, mashed potatoes, green beans. I set the table with candles, wore the blue dress he loved. I wanted to surprise him, to bring back some of that magic from Paris. He came home at 11:30. The candles had burned down to stubs. The food was cold. I'm sorry, he said, not meeting my eyes. I should have called. Marcus, what's going on? I asked. My voice shook. You're never home anymore. You barely talk to me. Did I do something wrong? He looked at me then, and for just a second, I saw something in his eyes. Guilt, maybe. Or was it pity? You didn't do anything wrong, Emma, he said quietly. I'm just stressed about work. That's all. But it wasn't all. I knew it wasn't. The discovery. I found the first receipt by accident. I was doing laundry, emptying his pants pockets before washing them, and there it was. A hotel receipt from the Riverside Inn. Date, last Tuesday. Time, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. My hands started shaking. Marcus had told me he was in meetings all day last Tuesday. He'd texted me at 3 to say he wouldn't be home for dinner. But he wasn't in meetings. He was at a hotel. For hours at a hotel in the middle of the day. I sat on the bedroom floor with that receipt in my hand, and I felt something inside me break. It was a physical sensation, like glass shattering in my chest. I didn't confront him that night. I needed to be sure. I needed proof. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I never thought I would be. I checked his credit card statements when he was in the shower. I looked through his car for more receipts. I even checked the pockets of his suits hanging in the closet. What I found destroyed me. 3 more hotel receipts. All different hotels. All during work hours. Restaurant bills for 2. Expensive restaurants I'd never been to. Flowers charged to his card. Flowers I'd never received. His phone rang constantly. He always stepped away to answer, lowering his voice, turning his back. When I asked who was calling, he said it was work. Just work. Nothing to worry about. He smiled when he said it. That same perfect smile from our wedding day. I wanted to believe him. So I did. We made love in our hotel room with the windows open, the sounds of Paris drifting up from the streets below. Afterward, while I slept, he would sit on the balcony with his phone, typing messages to someone. I saw the glow of the screen reflected in the window once, but I didn't ask. I was too afraid of the answer. On our last night in Paris, we stood at the top of the Eiffel Tower. The city sparkled below us like a blanket of stars. Marcus put his arm around me and said, "This is just the beginning, Emma. We're going to have everything." I leaned into him, feeling safe, feeling loved. I didn't know that everything to him meant something very different than it meant to me. The cracks appear. The first 3 months of marriage were fine. Normal. We settled into our apartment, a beautiful 2-bedroom in the nice part of town. Marcus went to work at his marketing firm. I worked at my father's real estate company, managing properties and meeting clients. We had dinner together most nights. We talked about buying a house, about starting a family someday. But then something changed. Marcus started coming home late. First, it was 9 o'clock, then 10, then midnight. He always had an excuse. A client dinner, a project deadline, a meeting that ran long. He kissed my forehead when he came in, said he was sorry, promised it would get better soon. It never did. The phone calls became more frequent. He would get a text, and his whole body would tense. He started taking his phone into the bathroom with him. He changed his passcode. When I asked why, he said it was for work security. His company had implemented new policies. The church bells rang like a promise that spring morning. I stood at the altar in my white dress, looking into Marcus's eyes, believing every word he said. The sun poured through the stained glass windows, painting everything in colors that seemed too beautiful to be real. Maybe that should have been my first warning. I, Marcus James Wellington, take you, Emma Rose Parker, to be my wife. His voice was steady, confident. 200 guests watched us, smiling, crying happy tears. My mother dabbed her eyes with a silk handkerchief. My father stood proud in his tuxedo. Marcus's hand was warm in mine, his smile perfect, his dark hair styled just right. He looked like every dream I'd ever had about my wedding day. I promised to love you, honor you, and cherish you for all the days of my life. I believed him. God help me, I believed every single word. The reception was at the Grand Harbor Hotel, the most expensive venue in the city. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls. The cake was 5 tiers tall, decorated with real flowers. Marcus had insisted on the best of everything. He said I deserved it. He said he wanted our wedding to be perfect because our love was perfect. We danced our first dance to At Last by Etta James. Marcus pulled me close, whispered in my ear that I was the most beautiful woman in the world. His breath smelled like champagne and mint. I remember thinking that this was the happiest moment of my life. I had no idea it would all turn to ash in my hands. The Paris honeymoon. Paris in May is supposed to be magical. We stayed at a hotel near the Eiffel Tower. Every morning, I woke up to croissants and coffee on our balcony. Marcus took me to the Louvre, to Notre Dame, to small cafes where we shared wine and cheese. He held my hand as we walked along the Seine. He kissed me under the stars. But even then, even in those golden days, something felt wrong.